Hey guys, I just want to welcome you back to His Nature Farm. But today we're pretty excited because I want to give you a kind of a recap and a little bit of a progress report on many things. Insulation, our ductless heating system. I want to introduce you to our mascot here. This is Lucy. We never really formally introduced you to her. Also, I want to give you that all-important update on the solar. And I kind of want to give you a status of where we're at with it, what's been going on. So stay tuned. All right, guys, behind me you'll see from gracious friends of ours, they gave us a camper. Right now, we got to use that, and we're greatly blessed for it. We have heat, we have beds. It's kind of great. As I said, it's been cold here. Now, let's take a look inside what we got going on. All right, so what we've done is, you may see through the faithful work of our crew here, we got our insulation in. Now, we put some insulation in here because this separates the shop space from the actual living space. So kind of right now what you're looking at is some of the living space. Got most of the electrical done in here. One of the complications with the electrical is that there's a lot of openings, a lot of doorways, and when you're talking about electrical, doorways require switches, particularly for lights when you enter a room. So there's a complexity here to designing it. I must say it's not the best design for the electrical layout, but we got through it. We have a lot of electrical wires. I've already probably used, I don't even know how many feet, probably 1,200 feet of just wire. So we have a lot of electrical going on in here. Also right here, you're gonna see we have some of our hardwood. This is this utility grade hardwood that we purchased. We got this at a great deal. It's unfinished, but it's utility grade. What that means is you got stuff in it. You got marks, you got holes, you got knots. Not the best stuff, but if you're building a barn and you kind of want it to look a little rustic, we got it at a salvage company. It was pretty inexpensive. I think it was $1.65 a square foot. So you got to weigh that. Now I'm going to show you here in a second what the rest of the crew, my kids, have done. They are actually doing our flooring, believe it or not, upstairs. So why don't we take a look up there real quick and I'll show you what they got going on up there. All right, so this is our second floor. This is where our bedrooms are going to be. And our kids, one behind the camera, and the other downstairs, my daughter, they have been doing our hardwood floor here. Pretty cool for 2 days worth of work, a couple hours a day. They've laid this hardwood down, and I want you to take a look at it. It looks pretty good. It looks pretty decent. They did a great job. Now, you may ask yourself, well, why did you do the hardwood before you did the interior walls? Because again, there's 4 bedrooms up here. Well, that's a command decision. Also, if you notice, I have no insulation and no electrical and no drywall. Being this is unfinished floor, and being that we have an open space here, the reality is it's a lot easier to do hardwood completely straight rather than partitioning up the rooms and then having to do all these cuts. Here, really simple. You just got one end cut on one side. So they've been able to progress. So what they're going to do is they're going to finish laying this hardwood down. Then we're going to partition for a bedroom, a bedroom, a bedroom, a bathroom, and another bedroom. And makes it a whole lot easier. So this entire space is going to have hardwood except for our bathroom. Going to have tile. And then we're going to come in here and we're going to do our electrical. After we do our interior framing, we're going to also do our insulation. Now I want to talk to you about this real quick. But what we did is we spaced our hardwood down at least 3/4 of an inch off the wall. Well, for one is why? Well, expansion and contraction is one thing. We want to leave room for expansion. Plus, we're going to have 1/2 inch drywall and we're going to have trim. So we have plenty of room to kind of do that. But they did a great job. Now, it's got holes in it. I want to talk to you about that. We'll kind of show you how we're going to finish this floor. We're going to stain it. Also, we're going to put a floor polyurethane on it. I'm not going to talk too much about how we're going to treat these holes because some of these holes, these knot holes, go all the way down to the subfloor. Again, if this was a very well finished, pristine type building, then we probably wouldn't use this because it's a rough grade floor. But it honestly is pretty smooth. We're going to do some staining, but some light staining. Typically, you're going to get one of the machines and do one of those giant sanding machines to sand the floor. We're probably just going to do some hand sanders and just sand this lightly. It's pretty darn smooth. But we're scheduling after this floor is done to start doing our interior framing. So we'll get you updated on that. Let's go down and take a look at the ductless heating systems. These are our ductless systems here. Ductless is something that is going to be a process as we do it on the channel because first of all, just like the previous one where I've never installed a chimney system for a wood stove, on this one, I've never installed ductless. I've seen a lot of videos. Again, it's so great to have YouTube where I can do that. But on this, it's pretty complicated in the sense that we have a large building with multiple heads. So in our figuring, we're looking at a total of probably 8 heads. Well, one unit doesn't cover 8 heads. Typically, most of them you see is 4. So it's going to consist, this building, of 2 outside condensing units with 4 heads like these here. And it's based on BTUs. 1 ton is 12,000 BTUs. So if you get a 36,000 BTU unit, it is 3 tons. This building is probably going to require in neighborhood of an excess of 5 tons at least, maybe 6. Because of the size. First reason why we went with this, and I want to point this out, which is very important. When you're on a off-grid system, you have to control, and again, we are shooting for completely off-grid. That requires us to be fairly intentional with how we design our heating system, because that's the greatest use of power. If we went with propane, naturally, it's going to be a whole lot easier, but that means we're going to go with a conventional HVAC system with a ducted system. These are all electric, and they have a pretty good SEER rating, meaning they're pretty efficient. This is not super efficient. It's a 19 SEER, which is better than most, but it's pretty efficient. Biggest thing with having separate heads is you can control what areas get heat when. And that is key when you're trying to manage your electrical usage. You want to be able to shut off, let's say, bedrooms you're not using. Well, if you have a central unit, that sucker turns on and it turns on the whole floor. So you don't have much say. With this unit, you can turn on and off the different rooms, and that will really help you manage your electric use. Also, you can do it by yourself. Honestly, I'm learning, and I'm gonna make probably mistakes with doing it, but I'll let you know how that goes. But I wanted to show you the first one and why we did this. Obviously, this is our first unit, our first head that we installed. This is a 12,000 BTU or 1 ton unit that is gonna fill just this middle part of our building. And I put it here for one reason. One is we have to do it in a location where we're going to be able to get as much penetration into the room as possible. Now, they're a little unsightly, so we didn't want to put it, as the object, the center object, but I did this as a temporary attachment to get it hooked up. Now, when we do drywall, we're going to have to take it off and then re-evacuate the system and stuff like that, which is kind of a pain, but we have to do it. So anyway, I installed this temporarily to get an idea of how we're running it. I want to give you a quick look. This is our drain line. Drain line has got to run for condensation. This goes under the building because obviously we're on a crawl and we have just nothing down there but dirt. So that goes down there. I want to thank my son for that idea because I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. Also, I want you to take a look at this up here real quick. When you run these lines, they have 2 refrigerant lines. So the question is how do we get these refrigerant lines here out the back of the house in as short of distance as possible, because every set of refrigerant lines runs about $200, and that consists of 2 lines. And it also consists of 1 16-gauge power wire that goes as well. So this was the best location, and we drilled holes through some of our floor joists. You can do that limitedly because you don't want to compromise the integrity. So we did that here, and we ran this line up here, and we ran it out the back wall, going out the back of the building. The reason why it's running out right here is because right behind this wall is our unit. I'm going to show you that here in a second. So we want to be pretty close. Now, they give you 16 feet of line, pretty standard. Well, this just doesn't make it. It's close, but it doesn't make it. So what we wanted to limit any sort of joints or connections in the wall or in the ceiling. So that's what I kind of did. And we got to insulate that because there will be condensation on these lines. Typically, you see most of these done after the fact. When they're installed, they're usually installed after the building is built. They're on the outside. Well, with us, you can do it on the inside of the wall because we're in framing. Now, but you got to be real cognizant of the idea that you're going to have condensation potentially on those lines, so they really got to be sealed. So anyway, let's go at the back and take a look at the compressor out there, and we'll take a look at that. Okay, guys, we're here in the back of the building, and I want to show you this. First of all, we got a couple things back here. So here we are. This is our condensing unit. They're large and they're pretty big when you're talking about a 36,000 BTU unit or a 3-ton unit up here. And this unit, you're going to see we have purchased these brackets. these hanging brackets. Now typically you can put them much lower. The reason why we put these so high, and we have two of them, you can see I prepped it that we have two of them, one for four and another one for four heads, both the same size. And these brackets are sized for the size of the unit. So when you go buy these brackets, know that they're sized. They'll tell you up to how many BTUs they're good for, meaning because the size of the unit is so wide. And so that's the unit there. We hung it up pretty high, as you could see, and you could see at the top the lines coming out. That's just one set. Now remember, when you look at the lines coming out, we're going to have 4 sets of those lines coming out of the building. We're going to have 4 sets for each one. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is, last time we were back here, we had a bunch of holes in the ground. We filled them in successfully, got them in. This is our clean out. This is for our septic field, our septic lines, 3-inch septic line that runs down here, goes all the way down to the bottom of the hill into our septic tank. This is a pretty long run. Now, when you're running septic lines, there's a lot of information, I apologize, but when you run this 3-inch line to the septic tank, believe it or not, there's no limit as far as distance. As long as you have the fall, you need the fall, meaning the pitch of the line to be going downhill. So we did this, we set this up, we buried our lines in here. If you remember, our water line, everything is buried in the one line, in the one trench, including our power. Now, we are off grid. We also don't have any requirements as a home that is on grid when it comes to electrical, even for some of our inspections. Now, we did have to pass an inspection for our septic field and our septic tanks, and that was already done. So I want to show you that. But the real focus of the final part of this episode is where we're at with our solar system and what we got going on. So let me take you a quick walk around and we're going to come back. Okay, so now we're talking about our solar. We are obviously coming into winter. We have a lot of panels. We have 40 panels we have to put up. Well, I wanted to get our system initially started, and I did it by putting 10 panels out here and to just get a gauge. Well, we're in December because we are coming up to that most important part, December 20th, 21st, when the sun in the northern hemisphere is the lowest point. So typically you could say that's the lowest point we're going to have. What we've learned so far, I think panels have a bit more capacity than I anticipated, particularly during the cloudiest of days. I was under the assumption cloudy days mean that you get 0 power whatsoever. That's not entirely true. You get some. Now, not much sometimes, but let me give you an example. On a cloudy day, we can get about 200 watts of power out of these 10 panels. So you could say 20 watts per panel. Bright, sunny, summer day, they're going to get about 400 watts per panel. 20 watts isn't much, but when you have 10 panels, it's 200 watts. If you have 40 panels, it's 800 watts. Again, I stand by the idea of having a lot of panels. I think it's worth it. Batteries are expensive. One battery's worth, four grand versus all these panels are probably 7,000-8,000. The reality is we really wanted capacity for the days that were cloudy. Enough about that. Let's take a look at the power shed we got and go take a look over there. Okay, we're here at our solar shed here that we have. I want to take you for a look of just at what point we're at right now and what the most important part of this is. So you'll see here we have our conduit line ran. One goes to our home here, one goes to our rear property, which is the new home we're building for our in-laws. So we have 2 feeds coming out. These are going out into the property. And then we have here, this is our conduit line that is protecting our DC MP4 solar wires. So it's coming up through the ground, which do not have to be in conduit in the ground. And it's coming up through the ground and it's going through here and it's going into our inverter. Now, so this goes into our inverter. Now here I want to point this out. This is our battery, but this is our backup system. We wired this with a 50 amp unit plug here, and it is a plug, and so it's a 50 amp plug. Now I want to point this out. Anything over 50 amps, they don't have a plug for it. So once you exceed 50 amps, like a stove size range, you got to hardwire it in, which this is 50 amp. Now this is not a 50 amp generator. This is only a 30 amp output generator, 240 volts. But we have it here, it's wired in for 50, so we can go as high as a 50. And let me tell you, this is gas ran. This is probably not a long-term solution because gas gets bad. So we're probably going to go with a propane. I'm going to use propane for a backup generator. You can use a little bottle or a big bottle. And propane can have a shelf life indefinitely. All right, when it comes to where we're at in here, again, we got our batteries all hooked up, and here is our inverter. So you might be looking at this thinking, what is going on with this old dangly wire here? This is temporary inside because we still have some more work to do, and I'll talk about that in a second. But these wires come from a gang of 3 batteries, and they come into our batteries right here, and these are from our PV inputs here. Only have 2 hooked up because only have one array of 10 wired up in series, okay? Meaning they're all wired up in series, they're all together. And then we have obviously 3 more because we're gonna have 40 total panels, 10 panels each. And these are our communication lines. Now I want to talk about this breaker, which is kind of neat. This is something I did not know, which I think is awesome. On this inverter, it's got the capacity to be wired where if you have a generator that has an electric start, you could set the app, or you could set it on the screen here, where the generator will automatically start and kick on when the battery level hits a certain level of state of charge. So when the state of charge, let's say, gets to 20% or 25%, you can automatically, this can send a signal to that generator to start. It'll start the generator, it'll charge up till it hits a goal, and you could set that as well. Let's say it's 80% state of charge, and it'll shut off. It's done automatically. I cannot tell you how important that would be, particularly if you leave and you're not at your place for, let's say, during the winter. Let's say you're gone for the winter vacation, or you're, during Christmas or something like that. Really, really, really important, really cool. Can't wait to get to do that. I think that's a neat thing. These generators I have don't do that. Anyway, I have this wired temporarily. What we're going to do here, this is the line that goes out. This is the outward line, our AC line that's running out, okay, over here. Now let's talk about setup real quick. So when you set these up, these batteries need to be properly arranged, not physically, but arranged when it comes to the dip switches. There are switches on each one. This system works really well with 3 batteries, okay? You can run more, you can run 5 off of one inverter, but it's got to be set up a little differently. You need a little extra equipment. This is what's really important to know. When you're hooking this up and you can't pick up the phone and call somebody who knows what they're doing with this particular system, it could drive you crazy. Now, I want to tell you, Signature Solar has been really good. Now, you have to wait. I had to wait on, I want to be transparent. I had to wait on hold for an hour at times. But they did, once they got on the line, walk me through everything, including updating the firmware. Now, this has a dongle, a wireless dongle here. It's on the outside, if you notice. I'm sure they did it on purpose, where if you don't want that wireless, you can pull it, right? If you don't want anybody being able to access it via wirelessly and change your settings, which you can do, you can pull this dongle and you're free. You're not on the wireless, you're on the wireless at all. So what's the results of where we're at? I want to give you this before we kind of wrap this up. What is my impression so far on solar? Now, I don't have everything hooked up in the building yet. I don't have all the heat, the range, stuff like that. So far, it's been amazing. I've been shocked at the level. For one, it's like these things aren't even here. It's like running off the grid. I don't have to do anything with this. It just runs and runs, and I can look at it from the app, and I can look at the app on the phone, and I could tell you state of charge. I could tell you how much we have input, wattage coming in. I could tell you when the generators are on, how much the generators are feeding. Works great. The power's been fantastic when it comes to this inverter. You can have up to 18,000 surge as far as output, but 12,000 continuous watts coming out of it. That's a lot of watts, 12,000 watts at one shot. So I don't think it's going to be a problem at all. But it's been better than expected. And to think that you are sitting here and you're running off the sun, your power, and it works well, and it's really indistinguishable from being on the grid. Indistinguishable for something like this. This is nothing like, let's say, for example, the Tesla Powerwall. Okay? Tesla Powerwall, I'm not sure if you're all familiar with this. Tesla Powerwall maxes out at 30 amps output, AC. 30 amps output. That's just a backup. That's nothing. This is 200 amps output. 200 amps. You can feed any normal home easily on 200 amps. So the reality is this is a completely different system than Tesla. And I get it. Tesla's ideas are different. They're just thinking about backup, on the grid backup. And I get that. So I don't want to make too much of a knock on them. I'm actually a pretty big fan. So, but anyway, I wanted to kind of show you that. So far, A+ and what I've seen. Now, that may change when we get the heat going, the range going, the dryer, good night. We're thinking about like maybe hanging our clothes out. So that may change. But so far, it's been phenomenal. And if this is really what I think it's going to be, and we may have to add some batteries, spend a little more money, to think that I don't have an electric bill is shocking. It's really shocking to me. I cannot believe that. I really can't believe it, that it actually works. Because I'm very suspect in some of this stuff sometimes. So anyway, that's my review so far. Before you spend a lot of money, I want you to have as much information as you can. So anyway, that's where we're at with the solar. That's where we are with His Nature Farm currently. Thank you guys for joining us. Please send your comments in, subscribe, hit the notification bell, because all that stuff has really been helping our channel, and we want to add more and more and more. And we have a ton of stuff, abnormally amount of things that we can show of us doing. Want to wish you an absolutely blessed day and a great holiday season coming up. Thanks for joining us.